I know these intros usually have jokes, but very important announcement. On November 7th, I'll be doing a live show in Sydney, Australia, and on November 23rd and 24th, I'll be doing live shows in Melbourne, Australia. Go to thenewstolympian.com/live for tickets. What's good? Thank you so much for tuning into this very special bonus episode of The Newest Olympian. My name is Mike Schubert. I'm the titular Newest Olympian. I'm a 30-year-old man who never read the Percy Jackson books as a kid, but I'm reading them now for the first time as an adult because I'm on a quest to determine if this is a book series that we've all been sleeping on as a society. And today, I am also not alone. I am joined by a fan favorite guest for a very special circumstance. It's under not great circumstances, but we're making lemonade out of lemons. And honestly, we're making some really good lemonade out of it. It's Stephen Parra. Stephen, how's it going?
Hey, doing pretty good. I'm doing the med student thing currently, but I'm having a lot of fun working in the hospital, and I'm actually having fun getting to hang out with you today. So could be worse.
Yes.
Actually,
yes, it could be worse.
It's going great.
Such as the I was going to say it could be worse, such as the day that sparked this endeavor we're on. So judging on the title, and maybe because you listened to the previous episodes or you saw on social media, the impetus behind this Q&A bonus episode is that Stephen Parra was trying to be a very nice human being, like he is, as he's wont to do, and was coming to our place to kind of help us with the final things of moving out. Kelly and I just put all our stuff into storage because our lease was running out. We have so much travel planned towards the end of the year that we're like, why would we also pay for a New York apartment on top of all this? So we put stuff in storage, and then we're going to move back to New York City later after the new year. But Stephen was helping with like the last minute kind of things, and he was going to drive us to the airport, which was going to be really nice. And unfortunately, because of the combination of a confusing sign and a parking app that let you pay for parking when you weren't supposed to be able to pay for parking, you got booted, and then they dilly-dallied with the unbooting process. So then you got towed, and then Texas registration was messing stuff up, which made your car impounded for longer. And then you had to take a bunch of Ubers and stuff. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, they also just had a straight up parking ticket on top of all those things. But yeah, it was a very stressful day at many days.
And on top of all of that, I left New York City, so you were already emotionally distraught.
Oh,
just
yeah.
a terrible, just a terrible day.
I mean, yeah, the whole thing was like I wanted to be able to say goodbye to you and Kelly, and then I had to go to Brooklyn to beg them to let me have my car back instead.
And you're still on your way back from Brooklyn because it's that far away,
Hello.
even though this was months ago.
Exactly. That's why we have to do this over Zoom, because there's no way I could get to you in time.
Now, here's what's going to go down. We've put out the feelers for questions, both on social media and on Patreon. We gave preference to Patreon questions because those people help make my job a reality. Sorry, just, an easy call there. But Stephen has all of the questions compiled. He has the ones that got the most thumbs ups and stuff ranked to be higher. But because this is Halloween, there will be some Halloween spooky questions interspliced in. I have not seen the questions, which is very exciting. And the way that this thing works as a fundraiser is that we're going to be taking 3 different breaks in the episode where ads will be inserted. So there will be more ads than normal, but I'm going to take the ad money from this episode. Half of it will go to charity, and then half of it will go to a different charity called Stephen Parra had to pay a whole heck of a lot to New York for seemingly no good reason. You really weren't in the way. It was an empty lane. I don't see why they were so mean to you, but that's the plan for this. So it's very like telethon-y, where the commercials fund the goodness. So here we are.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get into the questions. The other thing to note is that this is definitely, because it's a bonus episode, going to be a bit more lightly edited. So if you're like, wow, this doesn't sound as crisp and clean as a standard TNO episode, that's just a testament to how much work Sherry and I put in to the sound stuff. So this also has the benefit of letting you know how much work goes into editing the episodes, which is, spoiler alert, a lot.
All right, buddy. So let's kick this off. In the spirit of spooky season, a Patreon user asked us, what do you think each of the main trio would give as a treat on Halloween?
Like if they were at the house, what kind of candy would they dish out?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have to be candy.
Okay. Sure.
Just what treat?
Well, Percy's obviously going to give some sort of blue something, whether that's like blue jelly beans Or, oh, you know what he does? He's going to be like one of those houses. I don't know if this is just where I trick-or-treated in New Jersey, but you would sometimes have houses that made little custom bags with like a variety pack of sorts in it.
Yeah.
And they would like do like, a mini Reese's and a mini Three Musketeers and a mini Snickers, that kind of thing. I could see him doing that with a bunch of blue things. So it's got like a couple blue jelly beans, maybe like one of the blue tropical starbursts of the non-standard variety, a blue warhead, like all sorts of little candies like that. I could see him doing a blue variety pack.
Oh, heck yeah. That makes sense for Percy.
I feel like Annabeth's just going to go straight up with the give a full candy bar thing, like give the people what they want. Like, here's a full-size Snickers. We're not skimping. And then Grover would probably just give out like trash/compost, like an apple core, and be like, what? It's great. I love apple core.
Yeah, he just doesn't understand that that's not a universal treat.
Right. Speaking of Halloween, I was thinking of this before recording because I like to try to do some sort of question for the guests when they're on. We've already answered in an earlier episode what my best Halloween costume was, which was Skier who crashed into a tree. What's your best Halloween costume you've ever done?
Ooh, the best one I've ever done?
Or just your favorite or one that stands out?
When I was younger in college, I was told I had a very striking resemblance to Bruno Mars. A lot. And, I was an a cappella. I sang a lot. My hair was very poofy. We have a very similar facial structure. And I avoided that association for so long. And then finally in medical school, I decided to embrace it. So I went to the thrift store. I found like a very colorful blazer and stuff like that. And like tried to just do my best Uptown Funk cosplay, basically.
Nice.
For Halloween. And I really loved it. It was a lot of fun and kind of nice because I didn't have to actually do that much work, because most of the costume was already in place.
Sure. That's very fun. I like that a lot.
Other than that, I think I was Harry Potter like 3 different Halloweens in a row. So it's both as a kid and as an adult. So that's not as interesting.
We all have our phases where we would just go with, the tried and true standard one. I probably went as a Yankees baseball player 5 times as a kid. Such is life.
Yeah. Well, dude, my eyes are green. I got this really black, big hair,
And you're British.
Yeah, exactly. Famously. Exactly. All right. Another Patreon user, SW Plagius. I might have mispronounced that, but, here it is.
I might have in the episode where I gave them a shout out. Who's to say?
All right. But they're asking, what's been your favorite 2-character dynamic in the books so far?
Ooh. George and Martha. Easy peasy. What would be your answer to this?
Oh, man. George and Martha is really good. Let me try to pick something that isn't a chapter we did together, because come on, man. I think it's just Percy and Annabeth. I just really love their dynamic so much. I mean, I know even when I was, I want to say a kid, but I was 17. That's not a kid reading these books. I was just so delighted by their whole back and forth. It's just so great. And it's great to see, boys and girls having such like a positive, interesting relationship, even that young, represented in kids media. It's just great. I love the 2 of them.
Yeah, they're fantastic. I'm excited.
What are you excited for?
Whatever is ahead. Yeah, as we currently record this, I'm on chapter 2 of book 4. So I'm much farther ahead of where the podcast currently is. We're recording this on October 7th, even though it's coming out on Halloween. And there's some interesting dynamics in the very beginnings of book 4, I will say, without spoiling anything. So I am excited for things, how they develop. And I'd have to quick look at the schedule of where it is for what the last episode was. But towards the end of book 3 also has some interesting wrinkles as well. So if you don't know what lies ahead for Percy and Annabeth, it's good. It's fun. It's interesting.
Hayden on Twitter asks you, what would your demigod weapon be?
Oh, I like this. I've thought of this not necessarily as a demigod weapon, so I might have to think of how to celestial bronze it all. But my go-to answer for always the one version of this that I have considered is, if you're in a zombie apocalypse, what would your weapon be? And mine would definitely be baseball bat that has a lot of nails poking through the top of it. I know that on The Walking Dead they did barbed wire wrapped around a baseball bat, but that is not a good weapon. It looks cool, but functionally, barbed wire is supposed to get stuck in people, and I don't think you want that, whereas a nail, you can kind of just pew. So maybe I would just have a nice baseball bat with celestial bronze nails all poking out of it, and then that would be my weapon of choice. It's just very satisfying to hit something with a baseball bat. And because I played travel baseball growing up, and now I play a whole bunch of softball. It's just like a very natural sort of swinging motion for me. And I think it also just kind of fits the personality of the wielder, if you will.
Oh, yeah. That'd be super cool. Maybe you could like carry around some celestial baseballs too. And you could like have some long range.
Yeah, a little range attack. Do you have an answer to this one of what your weapon would be?
I think mine would be a spear of some sort. I just like spears in general.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be any good at it. I don't think I'm not much of a combative person to begin with, but
look, that wasn't the question though, so it's fine.
sorry. No, it'd be a spear.
You
Spears
just have
are freaking cool.
You just have a weapon.
I like spears. I like the spear in Hades.
It's not a question of how good you are with the weapon.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I think it'd be a spear. I think that would be cool. I like that, you get some good reach with that. And if you're really in a desperate situation, you can still throw it. And I like that there's some versatility there. Mm-hmm. And as someone who doesn't think they're very good at fighting, having that reach to keep people away from me is pretty...
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Pretty ideal, I think. And I guess as a follow-up question, like, how would it hide? Like, how would the mist hide your baseball bat of doom?
I guess if it just looked like a regular baseball bat, that could work, though it still would be strange for someone just to be carrying around a baseball bat in public. So I'm trying to think of something that would be like roughly baseball bat-ish shaped that if I was carrying it, it wouldn't look too strange. I would like if there was something like Riptide where I could collapse it into something smaller and then just put it in my pocket.
I think that's the idea behind the question.
Got it. Yeah. Then I think something where it could make it a little bit smaller would be fun. Then I wouldn't look at so strange and confusing. Oh, maybe it looks like an umbrella, Oh. And then if it's raining, people are like, oh right, umbrella. And then if it's sunny out, people are like, oh, maybe he forgot to apply sunscreen and he doesn't want to, get burned.
I just had the thought that it was like Celestial Big League Chew, and you have to rip it open and then it becomes the baseball bat.
That is quality bubblegum right there.
Oh yeah. Joy from Patreon is asking, what's been your favorite reveal / plot twist so far?
Ooh. Let me quick pull up the TNO calendar to make sure that what I'm about to answer will have already been on the podcast.
Okay.
Because there's one that I think is really good. Let's see. So this is coming out on October 31st. So we will have, okay. So in the last episode with Jania, we will have talked about the whole Atlas reveal with the general. And I thought that was really cool because it was fun in that I did have an inkling as to Zoe and the general being related. I didn't know enough about the Atlas myth, and I still don't because I haven't recorded the Dr. Moya Greek mythology episode yet. So I'm excited to learn more there. But I didn't key into the Atlas of it all. But I think that reveal is very cool. And then also what Percy does to get him back into trapped mode, him teaming up with Artemis, I thought that was really cool. And even though from the chapter title, I was pretty easily able to guess how Percy would live up to it with putting on a couple 1,000 pounds or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Or a few million pounds, I think. I guessed that would happen, but the way in which it all went down, especially after Atlas reveals that you can't, give it away, someone has to take it on, etc. The fact that they were able to trick him into it in that manner, especially with Artemis doing the thing where she kind of let him nearly get her with an attack in order to facilitate kicking him into position and then telepathically told Percy what was going on. That was all really, really cool. And I've liked a lot of the action scene chapters in the book so far, but I think that one was especially cool just because of there was so much more emotional buildup to it with the previous scene and with the Zoe dynamic and the Atlas dynamic. And then you've got Percy there and Annabeth, and Percy's unable to use the sword because of the Ares thing.
Yeah.
And then he's trying to sacrifice himself because he can't fight. Like there's so much going on there that I think all of the reveal and then the mini reveal of like how it gets into the situation of Percy holding the sky and then Atlas getting back to the sky. I thought that was really, really cool. The other one, second place, I would say, at least the one that I had the most visceral reaction to was when the Nemean lion came back in book 3, just because it was something that I brought up in an episode, like, this feels like something, right? And then whoever my guest was just like, oh, I don't know, whatever. And then, 2 books later, it does become something. It was just cool for me to be like, oh, and that was a thing. Yeah, and that was such like a more minor thing, but still such a cool reveal of, oh, that thing from 2 books ago that I completely forgot about because no one talked about it.
I think it's really cool because you've gotten to really dive deep into these books and digest them. Whereas I think a lot of people's experience has been kind of just reading it all the way through, not really sitting on each chapter as its own individual entity. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of these people, they'll cruise through all 5 books, mm-hmm. in a couple of sittings because they're just so enticing. So I think it's really cool that you were able to key in on some of these like callbacks, because I don't think I ever really realized that reading through that the Nemean Lion had been seen before.
Right. And that's another thing that anytime I get a guess right, I'm realizing, I can't be too proud of it because it's a book age. It's a book targeted for middle grade kids. Also with some like mythological references. So like some of those things could be known as well. But also, I'm reading these books with such a fine-tooth comb, even more fine-tooth than when I did Potterless, or at least by the time I got to the end. Like I'm going at like a slightly faster pace than I did books 6 and 7 for Potterless. So I'm really, really reading between the lines and taking notes and stuff. So like that's definitely a factor. And I think it's also proven by anytime Kelly is on the show, because she just absolutely plowed through the books so quick because they're so good. Mm-hmm. And she didn't have a job benefit of waiting in between chapters. She always has to reread them because she's like, everything is such a blur. I forget exactly what happened when. And, she got through the sequel series really quickly. So I definitely think that makes me not your average reader just because of the nature of doing the show. But I think it makes it really fun is that, I really do get the time to think about it. And that's why I like being able to do episodes that, cover 1 to 2 chapters, because I feel like it allows me to not miss anything. And very rarely do I have something where someone goes, oh, I wish Mike would have talked about this. And, I think that I'm giving every portion of the book its proper credit without like really stretching it out. So I think I've hit a good balance. And I think at least recently, for all the book 3 episodes, no one's complained about pace and stuff like that, because I kind of have set the precedent and I think it's going pretty well. But it's fun to go in depth, and I think, though I am biased, I think I'm doing a good job of not going too in depth to where it feels like I'm belaboring things.
I mean, I've enjoyed every episode I've listened to. I think you're doing a good job, buddy.
Thank you. I think I'm doing a great job too. My boss me is really happy with my performance.
Yeah. And I think that's like been an interesting space I've had to occupy as like someone who genuinely enjoys your content, but now have like stepped into this space where I am now part of it as well, which is kind of cool. I know Johnny kind of got to experience this back with Potterless, and it's kind of cool to sort of be on that side of it.
Mm-hmm. And it's also funny for one of those things. Johnny has had many more things happen in his life where he's getting busy. He's in the process of getting married. He's had job promotions and stuff like that. So he hasn't been able to be on as much. But I did think it was funny once you started to come along that people would say things like, oh, Steven's the new Johnny. It's like, well, yes, but also Johnny's been on the show. Yeah, but I think it's Johnny, one of those things where like, well, he's the old Johnny. Oh. I think the Johnny of it all is that because he got so established with Potterless, I feel like people went into TNO with him being like a known entity, as if he was, an established podcaster, Johnny Frolickstein, and not just, my friend who has good chemistry with me and knows the Harry Potter books well, Johnny Frolickstein. So it's funny that just kind of like going into TNO, it's like, oh yes, known quantity Johnny, we got it. Whereas like Stephen Parra was new expectations. A new friend has entered the fray. We like this Dr. Boy who has to give warnings about it. Do you need to give the warning as well? How about you give that warning and we'll go to our first ad break?
Oh, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Parra. The jokes, opinions, and weird answers to questions I have today are mine and mine alone, don't reflect the thoughts, opinions, or feelings of any medical school or medical entity that exists. See you after the ads. Woo!
Yay! I like that was ASMR, Stephen. Yay! Hello and welcome to the unnamed break for this very special bonus episode. Let's say it's the mid-roll give Steven a break, since that's kind of the whole purpose, or at least 50% of the purpose of this episode. I just wanted to give 2 announcements, one that appeals to people in Australia and another that appeals to people in the world. So for the Australia folks, as I said very hastily in the intro, we are doing live shows while I am here on vacation, doing a live show on Monday, November 7th in Sydney, Australia. Yes, that's in a week. It's at the Palace Chauvel in Sydney, technically Paddington. And we are going to be doing a joint Potterless and the New Olympian live show. The guest for the TNO portion will be Sarah Barra. The guest for the Potterless portion will be Kelly. It's going to be very fun and super cool. You can go to thenewsolympian.com/live for tickets. The part of the books that we'll be covering is the back end of chapter 2 of the 4th book, and then as much of chapter 3 as we can get through. Then on November 23rd and 24th, I'm coming to Melbourne. On the 23rd, I'm doing a Potterless live show with Kelly. And on the 24th, I'm doing a TNO live show with Kelly. That TNO show will cover whatever is left of chapter 3, if anything, of book 4, and then as much of chapter 4 of Battle of the Labyrinth that we can get through. Tickets to all 3 of these shows live at thenewestolympian.com/live. So head on over and get those tickets before we sell out. The Melbourne venue is tiny, so we might sell out. That's a legitimate concern. And now for the announcement that appeals to anyone in the world, we've got new merch available at thenewestolympian.com/merch. We've got physical items such as posters designed by Sarah Barra and signed by me. They feature artwork of me looking like I am a character in Hades the video game in front of the New York City skyline with pigeons flying around me. A very on-brand poster. I signed them with a gold Sharpie. I'm sorry, a celestial bronze Sharpie. So you can get those. There are gold enamel pins that say the New Olympian on them. They're in the shape of a trident. There's also going to be some digital merchandise. So you can first get the TNO theme song as a ringtone. You can also get a bundle, which has that ringtone as well as some other ringtones and text tones for some of the voices and stuff that I do in the show. You can get a text tone that's the little transition to the mid-roll break tune. You can get digital wallpapers for your phone. So there's that bundle. And then there's also a video replay of the show that we did in Philadelphia. And that will be the next episode of The Newest Olympians. So if you don't just want to listen to that episode, if you want to also see what it looked like, you can get the video of that. It was a half Potterless, half TNO show. Very fun Q&A in there. Kelly was the guest. My dad makes a little cameo appearance at the end. Lots of fun stuff. So all of that merchandise lives at thenewestolympian.com/merch. That's all I've got for the mid-roll break. Thank you so much for listening, not only to this bonus episode, but to the mid-roll break in the bonus episode. I won't be taking any other mid-roll breaks for the other times when we break for ads in order to raise funds. But thank you for listening. And here come the ads. And when they are done, these are going to be straight up the locally inserted ones. When they are done, we'll get back to this episode of The Newest Olympian. All right, we are back. Let's have another question.
Okay, thank you for coming back from after those long ads. Let's ask something that's kind of fun. Yeah, Mike, what has been the funniest part of the podcast for you so far?
The funniest part of the podcast? Oh, man. I do, you know what? I think it's your Mesa joke at the live show. I think it was just something, and as I described to you after the show, because you were starting to say, like, it kind of looks like and I thought you were going to say it kind of looks like toes, just making the joke of describing it exactly how it was described in the book.
Yeah.
But then it was the classic misdirect thing of you said table, and I was like, table? And then you explained the mesa being the Spanish word for table. So it was just like, it was already a funny joke, but then it was made doubly funny by catching me completely by surprise, because my brain was like, oh, I know what joke Steven is going to make. And then plot twist, I did not know what joke Steven was going to make. So it was extra funny for me.
I know. I felt really good because a friend of the pod, Gabrielle Urbina, came up to me afterwards, who is also a Spanish-speaking person. Sorry, I'm not fluent in Spanish. I just understand a lot of it. But he was just telling me how proud he was of the joke himself. And I was like, yeah, I got to keep my Latine cred here. Which was very nice. And just so I don't forget, that question was asked by Anksku from Instagram. Vicky Garcia wants to know from Patreon, what are your favorite fall activities?
Ooh, favorite fall activities. I like busting out cool jackets and sweaters is a big one. Being able to layer is always fun. I've done apple picking and kind of like your standard kind of things. Mm-hmm. There's a good apple picking spot in New York that I don't know the name of, but it's fun because you can go out apple picking. They also make alcoholic apple cider on the premises, so you can drink fresh cider. And then also one of the trees that I don't think is old enough to where it is bearing fruit is called ludicrous, and they will soon have ludicrous apples. And when those are finally able to be picked and purchased and eaten, I will be getting a giant bushel solely of ludicrous apples because of the name.
Yeah. Is this a bit? Is it a hip hop apple? Like,
I don't look. I'm sure it probably has something to do with Honeycrisp, but ludicrous, it's just too good of a pun not for me to want to eat them. And even if they taste bad, I will say it's the greatest apple I've ever eaten. I also really enjoy a fall hike.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it gets a little bit colder and sometimes a little bit wetter, just because you can do a hike depending on where you are. If you're doing a hike while the leaves are turning, that's really, really cool. Mm-hmm. And that's very, very pretty, especially when you get to the top, especially if you're in the Northeast, because then you can get to the top and see all these trees and all the colors are turning. That's really fun. And similarly, if you are in New York, there is a cool art sculpture garden type thing called Storm King, where it's kind of like this giant park and they have these really big statues and sculptures and different art things. And some of them like use the land. Like one of them is waves made out of like man-made hills in the grass and stuff. Like they take dirt and sod and kind of make things that look like ocean waves, but it's out of grass. And that's really cool, especially in the fall, because it's on this huge premises with trees all around. So if you get to see all this cool art with all of the leaves turning, that's very cool as well. So that would be my answer. Do you have any fall answers? I mean, I know in Texas the summers are, or I was going to say the summers are non-existent, but the real thing is the seasons are just summer, and then holidays.
Yeah,
but yeah.
It's like that's what I've always noticed. Like, there's no fall. It's just like it's hot, and then the leaves just all die. Like the trees just become barren, and then they come back. It's very strange. I didn't really get to experience fall until I moved to the Northeast when I was like 22. Mm-hmm. But I love fall.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like a state of mind. I love seeing the trees change, the nice breeze coming in, and when it's just getting just a little bit chilly, and then you kind of come inside, and you're kind of nice and cozy. And I think for me, a lot of what I love about fall is that it allows people to kind of hang out more intimately. Like everyone's kind of huddled a little closer. It's a little chillier. Yeah. You're doing stuff inside. You're doing these more collaborative activities, or you're going out hiking together or picking apples and stuff together. And I just kind of like the community building, I guess.
Yeah. Fall is also a great time sports-wise because you've got the baseball playoffs. You've got basketball season just starting. You have the football, not American football, which is underway, but I think that sport is garbage. Other football, what we call soccer here. The soccer, the Champions League is going on. Fall is a prime time for sports, which is always a fun time for me. And I'm just wishing nothing but the best for my beloved New York Yankees. I'm going to go knock on some wood real quick while you pull up the next question.
Sure. And again, apologies to everyone if I get your username wrong. I am not a professional talker. That's Mike.
That's me.
Just I Jess from Patreon is asking, if there was a zombie apocalypse, which PJO character do you think would survive the longest and why? And who's the first to become a zombie?
First to become a zombie, probably Clarice, because I think she would just want to fight all of them and use her fists, and proximity to zombies, not always a good idea. I would think that the person who would do the best, and again, I will have to just see where it's at, but I personally think Bianca is going to be okay, as I've said in the episodes that have already been released, and I have not learned what is her current situation as of now. But given that she's the only person to prove and be able to really fight quite well against zombies, I feel like Bianca would do very, very well. Mm-hmm. And your trapdoor has not been activated.
Yep,
Great.
Yep.
Do you have answers for these questions as well, though?
Who do I think is going to fare the best? Probably Annabeth.
Yeah, she'd be good too.
You know, she's wise, but she isn't like incapable. She's a really kick buddy girl.
Right.
She can really take care of herself, and she's smart enough to know the tactical advantage.
She would set up a good kind of fortress in a grocery store or whatever, but at the same time, if zombies broke through and she needed to fight them, she could certainly handle herself.
Yeah, and I think she would know when to cut her losses and like what's the best for everybody. To me, I think who's the first to become a zombie? Since Smelly Gabe is already petrified,
yeah.
You know, I'm going to be quite honest. I think Grover's not going to last too long.
Interesting. I see Grover I thought would be okay. I think it just really depends on, do reed pipe songs work on zombies? I think that's what it's going to come down to, is like, will the magic be extra effective because they're not as sound in the brain, or will the magic have no effect? So I think it's either feast or famine with Grover.
You know, yeah, I guess it's a good point. Like, it could go either way. I could also see Grover being the kind of person that's willing to be the distraction or try to help his friends, sort of thing.
Oh man. You're right. You're totally right. What if that happens in the real books? Oh no, Grover.
And like we said, the trapdoor's still intact. I ain't getting anything out of me.
Trapdoor's still intact. Bang bang.
I'm not sure if we've answered this in the pod before, but Giselle is wondering what your ambrosia or nectar would taste like.
Ooh. Speaking of not answering stuff, some of the questions that Stephen will be skipping are things that have been answered in Q&As of some of the live shows that have already been taking place. So that could already satisfy the question. If you're like, wait, I asked this and you didn't get to it. That might be that. My ambrosia and nectar. So ambrosia is just like tastes like any sort of food, and then nectar would just taste like any sort of drink.
I think that I guess what's the dream comfort food is basically what the question's asking, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I may have said this on the pod, but I think especially because as I'm recording this, I'm in Dallas, Texas, and I went to the Texas State Fair, which was wild, and the food there was ridiculous. But I definitely love horchata a lot, specifically from Taqueria Ruby number 5. But they had like a fried horchata type situation at the Dallas State Fair, or the Texas State Fair. The State Fair
fried
of
horchata?
Texas is the technical name.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was called I think it was called horchata. Cha-cha or something,
cha-cha?
I think, but they call it, there was definitely a cha-cha-cha joke in there, but it was basically horchata made into kind of like an ice cream. And then they had kind of like fried cinnamon rice, like balls in it. And then they did like a cinnamony, sugary like rim around the glass. The straw was a churro with a plastic straw inside of it, so you could use the churro as a straw. They had some cookies in there. They topped it with whipped cream. It was very good. It was quite fantastic.
So are you going back anytime soon? Can you?
I mean, we might have to make a pilgrimage. So I would say horchata would probably be really good. And then as far as if I had to pick like the comfort food, I kind of want to just pick Taqueria Ruby tacos, but I feel like I should pick something different because they're so good. I would want to pick probably something that like a home cooking thing from my parents would be. Oh, you know what it would be? My dad makes really good hamburgers. I don't know if you've ever had one of my dad's burgers.
I haven't.
But he makes really solid burgers to the point where like I didn't realize it until I got older and then started getting burgers at other places, and I was confused. Like when people would be like, oh, let's go to this restaurant, it has really good burgers. And then I would eat it and I'd be like, I paid $12 for this? Like, this is what? So I was spoiled. Joel makes really solid cheeseburgers. So I could see my ambrosia tasting like a classic Joel cheeseburger.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have answers on hand for your nectar and ambrosia?
Sure. Let's see. If we're going to say nectar is a drink, and it's like a sweet drink, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not big on sweets, but I do, in the wintertime, I do love making Mexican hot chocolate with my family.
Ooh, nice.
It's literally just hot chocolate, but we use this chocolate called Abuelita. A lot of grocery stores have it, but of course, it's at HEB.
Does Abuelita mean little grandmother?
It does mean little grandmother. You got it.
Look at me go.
But yeah, I do love the taste of that drink so much. And a lot of it also is like, normally we make that and then the family gets together to watch A Muppet Christmas Carol, which is the best Christmas movie. Fight me.
Oh, it's not up for debate. Very quick departure question. Mm-hmm. What is your favorite part of Muppet Christmas Carol? Because I have mine.
Oh
Easily
gosh.
My favorite portion is when they try to look through the window and it's too like, you know, dirty, foggy, whatever. And then Gonzo just takes Rizzo and smacks him against the window and starts rubbing him. And Rizzo goes, "Thank you for making me a part of this." I was in tears the first time I saw that, which was like 2 years ago.
There's so much of that movie that I love. If for no other reason that Michael Caine is giving his all.
It's his greatest performance. Like, non-jokingly, I think it's the most convincing acting he's ever done.
It's one of the best Scrooge portrayals ever.
Yes!
It's just like, wow.
It's kind of like how the best version of Mr. Collins in any Pride and Prejudice movie is in Pride and Prejudice and Zombies by Matt Smith. It's why. It's like that movie I was not as big of a fan of, but his Mr. Collins is the greatest Mr. Collins in any Pride and Prejudice movie, TV show adaptation at all. It's absurd.
Beautiful.
Anyway, your nectar tastes like.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Or your ambrosia. Your ambrosia.
Yeah. So my ambrosia. I actually remember the reason I was confused about this is I've talked to you about this on the phone before, but it wasn't on the podcast.
There it
but
is.
Yes,
there it is.
My ambrosia would be there's this local chain in San Antonio, at least, called Las Palapas. It's not the best Mexican food in the world that you've had, but it's very solid. And it's a good like mixture of fast casual sort of dining. So it's great. They have something on the menu called a taco norteño. And that's like a huge comfort food for me. It's a flour tortilla, got some nice refried beans base. You get beef fajita inside, and then it's topped with avocado and Monterey Jack cheese. Oh, it's just so savory.
That sounds really good.
So comforting. I guarantee you that's what it would be for me.
That's good. That's also really important that we talk about all of these different authentic Tex-Mex and Mexican cuisine items, because as we record this on Friday, October 7th, the episode of the Great British Bake Off where they did Mexican Week went live, and I'm still recovering. I'm still recovering from Paul Hollywood saying pico de gallo is basically like a salsa on the taco. Like, oh my God.
Taco. I know.
Gross. Ugh. Did you? I sent you the video.
You did.
Those tacos. I've never seen more offensive tacos in my life. Like, it made Taco Bell look like fine dining. It's devastating. Devastating.
Well, they can't get everything right.
Indeed, they can't.
Child of Apollo from Twitter has a question I really want answered, so they get to be asked today.
Boom.
When is a Lightning Thief musical cast member coming on the pod, Michael?
I mean, honestly, I think there is a chance. It's one of those things where, especially because we had Ashley Latimer on the show, who does Rick's social media and did the social media and potentially some more stuff for the Lightning Thief musical, I feel like I could definitely reach out to her and try to get someone. So eventually I will do episodes about the Lightning Thief musical. I'll probably do books, and then depending on when the TV show comes out, like TV show episodes will come out whenever the show is going live. Yeah. But then I would probably go movies, and then maybe the musical, and then maybe some of the spin-off-y stuff, and then get into the next series. So I'm definitely going to do episodes about it. I would definitely want to get people from the musical on it then. However, if something happens where someone from the musical who is also like a big Percy Jackson fan who's read the books and it wasn't just a job to them to be in the musical, I would love to have them on the show. But I think sometimes people forget this, and I've seen this more and more with doing LeakyCon, the Harry Potter conventions. People sometimes don't realize that oftentimes actors and things, it is just a job. So people are confused when people that are in the Harry Potter movies aren't Harry Potter mega fans, or they can't answer any trivia question. It's like, they're an actor, so they took an acting gig and they learned the lines. Like, some people go above and beyond for sure. Some people are super fans before they get cast, like Ivana Lynch, who played Luna Lovegood. Like, you can have that, but it's not everybody. So if there was, or is, and people know about it, if there is like someone who's in the musical that's a big old Percy Jackson fan and would be down to come on the show, like, I'm open to, tweet at him, tag me. I'll reply if something comes from it. Cool. Otherwise, when I do musical episodes, I'll try to reach out to anyone I know connected to it, like Ashley, and say, hey, doing an episode about the musical, can we get some folks on? That's something we could do. Like, I could do an episode with a standard guest, if you will, just like a regular TNO episode, but then I could do more of an interview one, like I did with Puffs in Potterless episodes, where it's just, let me just ask some questions of a cast member or people involved in the production or whatever, and just for an hour, let's just chat about the musical itself, as opposed to, the standard kind of thing where I would go through the plot bit by bit, beat by beat.
Which is awesome. Someone who really, really enjoys that cast album. I would be very excited to hear an episode like that.
Yeah, I look forward to the day when I can watch it, because I've heard nothing but good things, but I've heard that there are like some spoilery type things, even if they are little tiny references. I just want to be extra super careful, because as we discussed earlier in this episode, I go so in depth and stuff that if there is a tiny reference, I will probably catch it. So I don't want anything to be ruined.
Yeah, I do think overall it's a really good love letter back to the series itself.
Cool.
And I think honestly, you're going to enjoy it a lot better once you've read the core series.
Nice.
Because they do have little nods to things here and there. And I think it'll mean a lot more to you if you can catch those things. So,
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I'm excited.
Yeah. All right, so Kiara from Patreon has a very interesting question for you.
I'm ready.
As the owner of the world's most pro-pigeon podcast, do you care to make an official statement addressing the allegations that pigeons are spies for the government or are robots, because no one has ever seen a baby pigeon?
Now, Sherry, our editor, who's not editing this episode, I'm just doing the little minor edits for this one. I know she is big on birds aren't real and this sort of line of thinking. However, I have looked into the whole baby pigeon thing because folks have brought up to me the phenomenon of there is no such thing as a baby pigeon. We've never seen one. And I've researched this. And according to bird experts on the internet, the reason that is that places where pigeons are very common, such as New York, where you've got urban areas, pigeon nests can be very, very well hidden in alleyways, crevices, big trees in Central Park, whatever it is. So people don't necessarily see the nests very often. And apparently, pigeon babies stay in the nest for a really long time, more so than normal birds, and they don't leave the nest and walk around like ducklings do with mama duck. So apparently, they just stay in their nest for so long and they're so well hidden, people don't see them until they become adults and they fly the coop, if you will. So it's not that they don't exist, because you can Google it and you can see images of them. It's just they are rarely seen because they kind of stay at home longer before making their grand entrance into the world. So I don't think they work for the government. Also because, I don't know, pigeons are just vibing.
Yeah.
I don't think they have jobs.
But you know who does have a job?
Me.
And I think it would be a great time.
It would be. I was going to transition as well. Look at you go. So yes, we'll take a quick transition here for more of the ads, where the funds will be going to charity and Steven's charity, which is himself. Hooray. Talk to you soon. We're back. Let's have some more questions.
Okay. Elizabeth from Patreon asks, from what you've read so far, who do you think is the best mentor to protagonists? Dumbledore, Chiron, Ms. Darbus from High School Musical?
No.
Or your own choice? No.
Definitely not Dumbledore. Because he's so, especially what you learn, pretty manipulative and very withholding of information, not always for the best reasons. Chiron also withholds information, but it's usually for better reasons. I don't know that he would be the best mentor. He's definitely better than Dumbledore, though. Miss Darbus, not a fan. I feel like she could have been more welcoming to the students in their stressful High School Musical related lives. As far as other mentors, I'm trying to think of like different books and just like other series where there's really good mentorship. I don't know if you have an answer, if there's anyone you're thinking of, as I try to ponder who a good mentor is in some other media that I've consumed.
Well, it's funny because recently I read through the book, The Song of Achilles.
I've heard really good things about this book.
It's really good, but Chiron's in that too, and he's a way better mentor in that book than he is in the series. So that's what's kind of stuck in my head at the moment.
Oh, I actually have a really good answer.
Okay.
Mr. Miyagi from The Karate Kid.
Ooh, yeah.
Because it's the good thing of like teaching you without realizing it. And then he's got reasons for not going direct with it. And then, you know, very like down to earth, not very fancy. He would be a good one. I also think Mick from Rocky is a good one. Similar kind of thing where it's like, it's not flashy. It's not high tech. It's what you need. And it gives you that internal, you know, strength and motivation. So I think those would be my answers.
Nice. All right. So a few different users have asked this question, but I'll use Maya from Twitter's version of it. Which monster that you've seen so far do you think you could beat?
It would be tough. I'm not a big fighter because I've never done anything like wrestling or boxing or anything like that. I've never actually like been in like a real fist fight, you know, in school or with bullies or whatever.
Yeah, but let's say you're out on the Jersey Pier, you've got your trusty nail bat, and a monster shows up on the pier to fight you. Which one do you think? All right, maybe I got this.
I feel like it would have to be one that you kind of outsmart. So I think my answer might be Krusty, just because I think he was defeated in the most like tricksy way. And I think that is where I would excel, as opposed to something big and scary like the Hydra, or something where I have to be very careful and not look like Medusa. I feel like Krusty could probably be the thing that I handle, because I could try to, you know, smack talk him, sweet talk him into a thing and then get him by surprise. How about you? What if you had to face any of the monsters we have seen?
Well, see, I was going to say Krusty, so now...
Okay, hey, that's fine. No,
I think
that's the answer, that's the answer.
Now I'm going to say Krusty,
There
and
you
I'll
go.
stand even further behind you with my little spear and just poke away. Ginger Spurs Boy from Patreon wants to know, which side character would you most like to see get their own series?
Ooh, that's really good. It's hard because I haven't really met, I don't know like how fleshed out some of the other ones get. Because there's people who I like Beckendorf, but I don't know if he's going to become impactful in later books or anything like that. But based on the people that I've met so far, I do really like Grover. I think a Grover-centric story could be really interesting. Maybe it's just because I feel like I was robbed of Grover in book 2 since he was gone for most of it. But I do really enjoy Grover. Like if we were actually going like serious answer, I think it could be Grover. If I'm going like silly answer, I think Blackjack would be really fun. Just because I love the vibes of Blackjack. Very funny, established New Yorker, as we talked about in the last episode that went live, where his friends are Guido and Pork Pie. So canonical New York Italian Pegasus Blackjack,
Yes.
I think would be a very, very fun story. How about you?
Ooh. You know, honestly, it makes me think back to our episode where we first meet George and Martha.
Oh,
I would love to read.
Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't have to be a whole series, but man, I would love like a short story or just a day in Hermie's life, and we just hear George and Martha bickering the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that would be wonderful.
I think there could be something, and I know there are some things like the Demigod Files and other like short story spin-off things, but if Uncle Rick made a compilation type book of short stories of some of the sillier side characters, where it's just like, here's a funny Blackjack adventure, here's a funny Rainbow adventure, here's a funny Bessie day, you know, Bessie and Grover's trip across the ocean, you know, like all sorts of things like that could be really funny. A little George and Martha story, you know, all the little side folks we've met along the way. I think that could just be a really funny, like lighthearted compilations of the Percy Jackson books by Rick Riordan.
Uncle Rick, come on the pod so we can pitch this story to you.
Come on the pod and do extra work.
Yeah.
Do more work, Uncle Rick.
All right. So Madeline from Instagram has a really important question for you.
Okay.
What breakfast cereal would you be and why?
Okay. I've given this a lot of thought.
I see.
In that I've very much tried to promote the cereal in many different areas. And they're doing fine, so they don't need my promotion. But I believe my answer here would be Lucky Charms, because Lucky Charms is very delicious. It is a great cereal at any time. Breakfast, cool. Dessert. This is where I really got into it at Rice, where you and I went to college.
Mm-hmm.
They had Lucky Charms, at least in the cafeteria near my dorm. And I, for dessert, would get a bowl of Lucky Charms and then pour in chocolate milk. And it was really good because I would be eating like the cafeteria desserts at Rice. And like some were good, like when they would do cinnamon roll day, but other times it's like meh tiramisu or like meh cake or cookies. And I was realizing, you know, I'm eating these desserts and I'm sure they're awful for me and they don't even taste that good. Like it's easier to justify something that's terrible for you when it's delicious. Like CNC also, everything I ate at the Texas State Fair the other day, that's easier to justify because it's scrumptious. But I was like, And then I realized, oh, right. They kind of have to make cereal relatively healthy since it is marketed as a food that children should eat in the morning. And when you actually look at the nutritional facts of cereal in general, but specifically Lucky Charms, it's like weirdly not that unhealthy, especially when you compare it to other cereals. That's where I really notice it. Lucky Charms was always next to Honey Nut Cheerios. Lucky Charms, healthier than Honey Nut Cheerios for the most part, mainly because every piece of Honey Nut Cheerios is covered in some sort of honey nut sugary glaze. And the things that aren't marshmallows in Lucky Charms is just like straight oats. And I think over time, they've reduced the percentage of the box that is marshmallows to not marshmallows to try to make it a little healthier. So the reason that would be me is I think like on the surface, people are like, oh, fun and bubbly and yeah, but like actually if you become friends with me and you need me to be like serious boy, I also have like, you know, I can have a heart to heart. I can be serious. I can be sentimental, though it's not necessarily like what I think I would be characterized as. If you look a little deeper, it's there. And then if you really need to get serious, you can do, you know, the anti thing that people like to think about with Lucky Charms. You can take out all the marshmallows and just have straight oats, and I can be that person for you if need be. Do you have an answer for what breakfast cereal you would be?
Oh, man. I don't really eat a lot of cereal.
Horchata Rice Krispies from H-E-B?
Oh, those are so good.
Those are so good.
Oh, my gosh. They're so good.
Oh, today's episode brought to you by everything horchata flavor.
/HEB.
Dude, I think I want to just like send a cold email to HEB, be like, I talk about you on the show a lot. Let's make this official.
Send us some mitads.
You have sponsored the San Antonio Spurs. Why not the News Olympian podcast? Nothing is too ridiculous.
Those are equivalent media markets. Like,
yeah.
Julius Rulus from Patreon is asking, what's your favorite book series that you read as a kid / teenager?
Ooh, I didn't read a lot of series. When I was really little, I would read the Matt Christopher books, which are these sports books that were really fun, like Little Lefty and The Kid Who Could Only Hit Homers. As far as like favorite book as a kid, as I've said a lot before, Holes by Louis Sachar was like my favorite book as a kid. Really loved it. That was like the first book that I ever read, because my mom would say like little things like read a chapter of a book before you go to bed. And that was the first book where I ever asked permission to read more than one chapter. And my mom was like, obviously you can stay up later and read, Michael, who despite, trying very hard in school, reading is the one thing he just doesn't enjoy, even though he's good at it. And then obviously Encyclopedia Brown was a big one for me as a kid. And that led to me making meddling adults. So those would be kind of the answers. How about you? What book series is, besides Percy Jackson, were up your alley?
Unlike Mike, I read voraciously as a kid. I read everything. Probably the series I read a lot as a kid was Harry Potter. Though, as I've told Mike, maybe the listeners at large don't know, I rarely, very, very rarely ever read a book twice.
Same. I want to experience a new thing. Exactly. I rarely consume anything twice, except for some video games, especially if they have replay value.
Yeah. And so it's like even for the Harry Potter books, I read them all through once. I think the only one I've read more than once was book 4. And that's because I had read it at the library or something. And so when I bought the book myself, I did just reread it. But that was it. And so until you started this podcast, I'd only read the Percy Jackson books through once. And now this has been like my second time going through them. And it's been a lot of fun.
I also am happy to confirm I did talk about the series of unfortunate events in the first episode. And I did the whole ever thing. So if editing Mike in the future edited that all out, there was a point earlier in the audio where I told that same story and I might have just deleted it to save time.
Okay. So Danny from Twitter asked a really sweet question. And it's for both of us. And it says, can you pinpoint what memory made you both realize this was a friendship that would last?
Oh, that's really sweet. Oh, man.
It's very sweet.
I can think of a couple of things. The first was like the moment that you always often talk about is like kind of like the first moment where even though we weren't super tight in college, I knew I liked you as a human and wanted to get to know you better. Is you were in applications for doing an orientation week thing at the residential college that I was in at Rice. And I saw you from across the cafeteria. And when I didn't know you were applying, and when I saw that you were applying, I was like, oh, Stephen Parra. So I was super stoked about that. I do think, I don't know, like, particularly like once we started hanging in New York, if there's like a key memory, I don't know if that would be your answer. But I do know that when it came time for me, because it was soon after moving to New York and you being there, that I had to basically like put together my groomsmen list for the wedding. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking it over with Kelly, because it was really hard for me to try to pick like who would be in, and some of the folks who didn't make the cut, I still invited to my bachelor party and stuff like that. But I remember from day one being like, oh, Stephen Parr's in there for sure. And I remember Kelly being like, really? Like, you guys have only like just started hanging out. And I was like, I just know that I'm going to be lifelong friends with this dude. And I know he's going to be one of the, most important people of my life going forward. And it would be foolish for me not to do this. Like, it's one of those kind of like knowing what's ahead and making the decision based on that, as opposed to like who's been the most important in like my cumulative 29 years so far kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I just like never wavered. It was like, oh, Stephen Parr's in there, no question at all. And I think that's like the moment that I truly knew. And it's proven to be a very good decision on my part.
Yeah, I think the moment I knew it would last was probably when I came to hang out and you were just like, hey, do you want to be in my wedding? And I got all teary-eyed. I was like, yeah. Oh. That was very sweet. But I think the first thing that like started me on that track was like Mike said, we knew each other in college. A large part friends because of our mutual friend Chet, who did a cappella with me.
And he was one of my suite mates and did engineering stuff with me.
Yeah. So we were connected through that. And so when Mike first moved to New York, we would try to get all three of us together.
This is the correct answer. You're right. You've given the correct answer. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Chet couldn't come out with us, but we actually wanted to get together to see a different friend of ours who did a cappella and improv. Mike was on the improv team. He had a live show. And so Mike and I decided to meet up together to go see this show. We had some time before the show, so we just chilled out and got a drink, and we're just chit-chatting, and it was just like a really good conversation. And then out of the blue, Mike just starts telling me about how much he loves Kelly and all of his plans for the engagement. I remember being so touched by this story, and then so touched that he'd been so vulnerable with me so quickly, and I'm like, I want to hang out with this dude all the time. So I think that was like really... for me, that was like a huge moment, I think.
Yeah, no, that is certainly the correct answer. And yeah, I think it was just like we went to grab some tacos and then we went to grab some beer. And I remember just the vibes of that were incredibly strong, where it was a no question to be like, yeah, let me just talk to this guy about my engagement plans. But yeah, that's the right answer for sure. Like that was the key, like us hanging in New York, like blossoming friendship sort of thing. And that was just like it was just a great evening, meeting up, hanging out, grabbing food, grabbing drinks, going to a show, hanging out a little bit after. It was a fun time, and it really like set the course. And I can't think of a better place to end this little Q&A episode. How could we follow up that sentimentality with anything else? So Stephen, thank you so much for working on this and putting together all the questions and stuff. Everyone who is listening, thank you for listening. Everyone who submitted questions, thank you so much for submitting questions. We've only taken 2 ad breaks, right? So I think let's take another little break here, and then we'll come back with just like final little outro-y type things after the last set of ads.
See you soon.
And we are back again. Thank you so much for everyone for tuning in, for helping us raise funds for charity, and for Stephen. I'll have to figure out exactly what I'm going to do with the charitable funds. I think the simplest thing is probably just me adding it to the contribution that goes towards middling adults, which we have the money just go to the winning charities, and that way it can go to a lot of different organizations. So that'll be fun. But yeah, this was a really fun thing to do. I don't know if I'm going to do this sort of thing for every single time we take a week off of TNO, since it is extra work, and I already always post something to the Potterless feed when we take a week off in TNO. But I do like just kind of like thinking of this as a potential way, because I'm trying to think of ways to get like more charitable efforts into TNO, like I had done with Potterless. And I have like a really big picture thing in mind that I would love to do, but it's like gonna take a lot of work. So in the meantime, doing stuff like this is fun. So I'm glad that we were able to work this out and put this together, and hopefully people enjoyed it. And if you enjoyed like the Q&A element of this, we do the monthly Q&As over at Patreon. So if you're at the Mega God tier or above, every month we do a sort of Q&A video thing, 30 minutes, super fun times. And then at live shows, it always ends with Q&A as well. So lots of different ways. It's always fun doing this sort of thing. So I'm glad we got to put this together. And Stephen, thanks for joining. This was a fun little time.
Yeah. Like I've told you before, I'll come and do whatever you want for the show whenever. It's just hanging out with my buddies. So
it's pretty good.
I love being here, and it's always great to get to just help you do this thing you love. It's great, buddy.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Well, thank you again, listeners. Thank you again. And until next time, when we come back to continue our way through the Titan's Curse, we had a very, eventful run of chapters last time with chapter 17 and 18. And then we get into another intense chapter next episode. Until we get into that in just a week's time, I'll see you later. Hey, thank you so much for listening to this very special bonus episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also edited this one as well. Shout out to Stephen for compiling the questions and asking the questions. And also shout out to all the folks who asked questions, whether it was on Patreon or social media. I very much appreciate it. I did do something on the Patreon where I answered the rest of the questions. So any other question that was sent in that Stephen compiled that was not answered in this episode, episode you can find on the Patreon. I think I considered it a live stream, so you would have to be at one of the top 2 tiers. That's the live stream tier. But as I said in the episode, if you enjoyed this sort of Q&A thing, we do it on a monthly basis for those top 2 tiers of the Patreon. So thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Final reminder, we have those Australia live shows coming up in November. We have the new merch over at thenewestolympian.com/merch. And then, of course, you can always find us on social media at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We're on reddit.com/r/thenewestolympian. We're on TikTok at Newest Olympian. We've got the Discord if you join the Patreon at thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. And get ready, because next week we are back with a standard episode where we will be covering the 19th chapter of Percy Jackson and the Titan's Curse, live from Philadelphia with a very special guest, Kelly Beckman-Schubert. But until then, I'll Percy you later. Hey everyone, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. So I am currently here in the place we're staying in Sydney, Australia, and I have some laundry that we were line drying. So for this ASMR Mike segment of this bonus episode, I'm just going to fold some laundry. I'm recording this on my iPhone, which is placed on the bed where the laundry is. So here is some soothing folding sounds. I wish you could smell how clean laundry was. Thank you so much for listening.